Now, we'll talk about cows and dropping milk, and if they get skittish, they're like, no. And if anyone's ever raised a child and breastfed, they would know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, how animals will sometimes, just don't want to cooperate. So there's been many mornings where the cow was just like, come on, I have to talk to it. Because normally, but I'm jumping ahead too much. But my name is Bill, and I have Jeremy, right? He is also going to be helping me with the presentation because I know nothing about cows other than I found a Jersey and I bought it. And this man over here knows more about the cows, but this is pretty much how I do the milking. And I'm talking for someone who didn't own a cow, wasn't on a farm, never milked a cow ever, and bought one. Yeah, I'm that guy. So I messed up a ton. Well, not really. Actually, YouTube University helped 1,000%. And it's almost like when you're raising your own child, your instincts eventually will take over, and you need to trust that and understand. But that's another whole thing. So I'm not. If you wanted someone with a PhD in cow milking, we'll refund your money. You're welcome to stay. But I'm pretty sure that when it really comes down to it, would you rather have someone who knew nothing and figured out how to do it than someone who just kind of like, well, I'm at a big thing and you should buy a cow? Because I've gone to those, the Dohertys, which are fantastic, some of the other ones, but they don't get into nitty gritty. Like, what's your day look like when you start milking? What equipment did you need? How do you milk a cow? Do you pull on them or? So we're going to go through all that. So the main thing is why would you want a cow? This is interactive time. Anybody thinking, I want a cow, and why? Boom, I was on that list. Anyone else? Bored and just want to wake up early in the morning? Anyone? Early riser? Okay, maybe.
Or maybe to raise a cow, to raise a calf, to use to know where your food comes from.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. He raises his for milk. I raise mine for as what we call a nurse cow. So you can do it several ways. Yeah. You can still collect milk off of your nurse cow to use as a fresh milk, or you can also use them to nurse a calf off of. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. So well, that's just about all I'd say about that.
All right. Well, we'll get back to that. Any other whys? Is somebody actually thinking about it? That's what my thing is. Like they're like on the internet looking at the cows right now, or they got one at home they got yesterday and they don't want. What do I do with it now? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So mine was how I ended up with my cow is I've been following a website. They're out of Missouri called Hilltop Jerseys. If you want to run into them, they're fantastic. They talked at the Ozark Festival up in Missouri about 2 years ago. And I met them there. They filled in, and so they were just awesome. I followed their website, and one day I, follow us. So I did that. They had a nice email saying, "Hey, if you want a dairy cow, we're coming down to Texas, and we'll drop it off for free, and you won't have to pay if it's along the way." And I'm like, "Boom, we're getting a cow because I'm cheap." So they sent me a nice Rolodex of here's all the cows we have. They had them all heifers, which we'll talk about what a heifer is. And went in, and of course, as you get into the process, you're like, oh, this one's only 2,000, and it just goes up and up. And next thing you know, I bought a very expensive cow. But you talk to people like Jeremy, and you'll find out, no, there's people out there that spend a ton of cash for a registered Jersey if they want a bull or something like that. I mean, it's outrageous. So, in all reality, it is an investment. And it does cost some money. Mine, I won't say, mine was $4,200. And that was probably the biggest purchase of animal that I've ever got. Everything else has been like, 200 here, 300 there, Now, I was thinking about doing goats. Anybody thinking of goats? Boom, goats. Why did we want a cow? Well, my daughter over here loves cheese. Yeah, she's hiding behind the phone now. And she wanted to make cheese. So a cow you're able to do more with the cheese. Now we're still learning on that. That's a different class. If you showed up for a cheese class, we're not, we have not perfected cheese yet. Trust me. There's the one called Dream Cheese, and we just dream that it comes out okay. But that was one of the main reasons. So we end up getting about 1.5 gallons a day to 2 gallons. We milk once a day right now, but we're getting ready to do twice a day. And today is her first time she gets milk twice a day. So she may or may not go like, what's going on? But I'll talk about why that's going on. Any other questions on, and we're going to really start getting into it, teacher. I kind of just slowed down a little bit. Go.
Are you glad you didn't get goats?
We might still get goats. And we're jumping ahead, but I will go ahead and hit it now. At a point in time, your cow will dry out, so to speak. So you need to, get it repregnated, to keep the world going, keep life going, and the milk starts to taper off. So I'm thinking during that taper off time, which now I'm researching is not as big of taper off. Some people say, oh, you need to stop milking 3 months before birth. Now they're saying, no, just keep milking. When you start to see colostrum come out, which we'll talk about later, just go, whoa, she either has a mastitis. Nope, they're not hot. Baby's coming, because they'll just, swell up. So, but we'll get into that. Jeremy will hit that more. All right. So the main thing when you're starting to look for a cow is your infrastructure that you have at your homestead. I have 10 acres here, had a barn, had fairly decent grass. That's another reason I said, hey, let's do a dairy cow because, during the summer, my grass is fantastic. I got sheep, goats, like things that don't sometimes. So I just said, well, let's just go ahead and get a dairy cow. So that's why I decided to do that instead of goats, but I still might do goats. Yeah, I'm going to punish myself and do goats too. So as a minimum, you need some place to keep them. Fencing is your best friend because you don't want you love neighbors, but if their cow keeps constantly getting out, like my neighbors across the street, his cows kept getting out. After a while, we're just like, Chase, your cow's out again. So he took them to the butcher. He says, I'm done. And he had good fencing because sometimes cow wants to get out. So good fencing, you need, water, the whole standard thing. Some, as far as milking, I'll use my barn is what I had. Some people build a milk shed and all these fancy things. You don't need all that, to tell you the truth, because you can go to it. If you have it already, go for it. But there's some people just walk up to their cow in the field and throw a bucket of food down or not, which you can talk about that in a minute, and just milk it right there on the spot in the elements. Well, I'm like I said, I like when it's raining, it's nice being in a barn. So you got to think about that when it's cold, when it's wet. The infrastructure for your cow, like I said, you'll need a pen is good because every now and then you don't want them, streaming out. But the main thing is, can your life have a routine? That's the main thing. You need to be able to have a routine because cows like routines. Tonight we're going to break her routine. She's not used to going into the stall at 5:30. Normally she's coming over here and separating her calf from her so I get more milk in the morning. So this is going to break her routine, but I got alfalfa. She'll like that the routine got broken. So she'll be fine. So that's the main thing. How much property you have, and like I said, you'll need about 12,000 or 1,200 square feet of pasture per cow. So some say, almost 3 acres, 4 acres per cow. Especially a dairy, they just love to eat. That's all they do. They want to eat and they want to poop.
Like a big dairy barn, though. Like their place would be, they would have 200 cows on a small enclosure, but they're feeding them every single bit of food that they're getting. They're pushing to them, and they can just go in and go out. The way the world's gotten now, the cow actually milks herself, and he talked about a routine. A cow knows a routine, and if you get off that routine, she knows all about it.
Yeah.
So they've proven that a cow will milk herself by a collar that walks up to a device that lets her in, lets her be milked, just like with her calf. You got to think like that to her. Us milking her is like her calf nursing her off because her bag gets big and full of milk. She wants that rascal to be down. So that's why they'll ball to. If you've ever noticed a cow be nursing in the pasture, or grazing in the pasture, and she'll bawl, and her calf will come right to her and start nursing her bag. That's kind of the reasoning behind that. So when you start talking, area that they need to live in, hot wire will be your best friend if you have a milk cow. And I mean, you can keep them pretty much contained because you're going to be feeding them a lot. Like right now, there's no green grass. You're feeding them every single thing that they get. So once you get a routine and you get on a feed schedule, if you're going to feed them 4 pounds of alfalfa and 4 pounds of grain, that's what you kind of need to stick to once you get a routine per se. So when it comes to housing one, you definitely want to make sure that you have a place for them to get in up off the dry. That's another thing. Yeah, some of them will let you go right out to the pasture and have your milk bucket and milk them into a bucket. That's awesome. But the other thing is like days it's cold or it gets really wet and really wet. Their feet, a lot of dairy cows have bad feet. So you have to keep that in consideration. They have to have a dry place to stand at some time, because if they don't, they'll have really, really bad feet. So then they'll get stressed out. They'll have bad feet. They won't milk like they should. So whenever you get a milk cow, you have to have kind of an open mind, and he nailed it. I raised beef cows 15 years before I ever had a dairy cow. And I mean, it is night and day difference. I mean, it's two completely different animals. So they're all kind of the same thing. They all eat the same way and they poop the same way, but their insides are way different whenever you start talking a dairy cow, because that's what they're bred for. A cow out in the pasture, the black cow, it's designed for meat. These are designed for milk. And that's how come that they're kind of hard to get along with until you kind of get a routine. But routine will be your very best friend once you get a routine.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
Uh,
go ahead.
Did you say 3 acres per cow when the grass is green, kind of thing?
Yeah. So like right now, for instance, I have I try to keep my cows in 30 or 40 head groups on about 300 acres. But like you can skinny that down. Grazing them in rotational grazing, that would be a whole nother topic.
Yeah, I was
But
going to hit that.
whenever
one.
you start talking rotational grazing, you can graze a lot more for a lot less than what they tell you. But you've got to take care of your grass, and he nailed it right there. Like if you overgraze it down to the nubbins, you won't get nothing. But as long as you take care of your grass, you'll do a whole heck of a lot better. But your dairy cow, you got to think like a dairy cow versus a beef cow, two totally different things. Like I said, a dairy cow gets whatever you give it, or whatever it eats is pretty much what you give it. Where a beef cow, like in the summer, it's just standing out there grazing away. Kind of the difference.
Yeah. And as you drive out, if like over here, I have a paddock that I've electrified to allow the grass to grow so that I can open it up. And I did that. It's called a intense rotational grazing, which is another whole seminar. But there's a salad bar beef, Joel Salatin. It's everywhere. You hit Bob, and he can always hit you on that information. But like I said, we could very easily just end up and not even showing a milker here, because just the cow part. But anything else on infrastructure that we're thinking of, that's like your farm, your fences. You just need it. I saw a guy on YouTube that has some dairy cow walking through his house, and he's like eating cereal on the cows. Yeah, right. No, that ain't gonna work. So, yeah, reality.
But also, it's probably in his topic. Also, remember the size of the cow is based on the area that you keep it in. So if you have a great big old giant, like I had a registered Holstein cow one time, she weighed 1,600 pounds, makes 6 gallons of milk a day. I mean, she needed a big area. So if you have a little Jersey cow that weighs 900 pounds or, 1,000-pound Jersey, I mean, you got to think 600 pounds is a lot of weight of difference in the two cows. And they consume a lot more feed, because what you're giving them in their protein and their diet is what you're getting out of their bag, is what the milk is going to be. If you feed them junk, it's just like us. You are what you eat, and they are a prime example of that, because if you feed them junk, their milk is going to be horrible. You'll be like, this is gross. If you feed them good feed and you feed them a good diet, their milk will be at its full potential. So milks, like they have ways to test the milk. I think it all tastes the same, but it does vary on the cow. Some Jersey cows, they have more cream, versus a Holstein, they have more fat, or whatever the case is. That definitely does play a big factor in it when it comes to their diet.
And I'll just real world. I overgrazed one because I was too busy, and they had a lot of ragweed, so they were getting down to the very, we'll start eating ragweed. We call it skunk milk because it actually tasted like ragweed. It was like, ugh, you know. So that milk went to the dogs. They don't care. They go, no, this dog's great. So, all right. So once you figured out your infrastructure, why you want a cow, you have a routine. You think you can have a routine, or you know, picking a cow. We can go forever on that one. Mini jerseys, Dexters, I say get whatever you can get, but at the same time, you got to think about how you're going to breed that back. I didn't think that far ahead, and that's where I'm having things now. I got to figure out AI, another whole subject. So it would have been nice to get it more local and say, hey, I have a Jersey bull that's right down the road, but worst case, I can breed it to another cow that is within its sizing, because you don't want to have a big, huge bull genetic string and,
No, some, but no, not a lot. No.
So, but also think about that when you're selecting the cow. If you get some crazy cow that no one's ever heard of, and it's coming in from Canada and it's got nice long hair, and you think it's fantastic, and then it hits summer here, that cow's gonna be miserable. So there's cows that do well in heat. Jerseys are good for that. Dexters are really good. So, and then the amount of milk that comes off. If you just want a family cow, like I said, 1.5 gallons, 2 gallons. I'm constantly calling Bob and other people like, you got to take this milk. 1.5 to 2 gallons, depending. Milking once a day, and I'm calf sharing, which is another subject here. Getting ready to hit. So when you get a cow, selecting it, here's the thing that I ended up doing. I got lucky in the Hilltop Jersey. I got a cow that it was officially not a heifer. Now, a heifer is a cow that has never had a calf. Some people say that a Jersey has to have 2 calves, but let's just keep it simple. It's never had a calf, never been milked. So when you get it, it's going to be cheap. It's going to be like $1,500. You're like, I got a Jersey. It's a heifer. They say it's already impregnated. It's had a pregnancy test. That is good, but it's never been hand milked ever. So that wouldn't be the first cow. Now I'm fairly comfortable. I think I could probably do it. I could probably get it done, but it would still be a struggle. Some people will be easier than others. So when you start hearing these terms on cows, like, is it a heifer? How many calves that it had? Has it already had a pregnancy test? Because it showed up already pregnant. I knew what bull. They keep track of the bulls that they have. I have the entire genetic string. They handed it to me, and it's a registered Jersey. So that's why mine costs so much. But you can go, and find something on Craigslist. Sometimes people need to get rid of a cow. But if you don't know much about cows, please find someone, not me, because I just look at it and go, yeah, that looks good. Teats are good. I'll be looking at the teats and that'd be an easy milker. But everybody else is going to be looking at their eyes and, okay, this is, they look at the health of the cow. I'm just going to be looking at, I think I can milk it. So anything on cow, because we're about to get into milking. No. All right. And selection of the cows. Anyone had one that they were like thinking of that you want to ask?
I do have something to add to that. About
okay, go ahead.
So somebody has got to take that responsibility, and it's not don't let him scare you from what he said. It can be harder. Like, definitely, if it's your first time, I'm going to suggest what he suggested. Don't get a heifer. But if you do get a heifer, they are cheaper, and if you buy from a good, reputable seller, there's a good chance that you're probably going to get a decent cow. So the best thing for you to do if she's a heifer is that's to mess with her as much as you possibly can. And I mean, rub her down, scratch her belly, and make her be used to you. Because you don't want to find out that she's not going to accept you whenever she has a calf and something has went wrong. Because she will kick your head off. And I promise to you, they can kick pretty deadgum hard. One kicked me in the hand and broke my hand in 4 spots. And all I did was just touched her bag. So, and that's something else, but we'll probably get to that. You always want to make yourself have no static in you whatsoever. So like if you've been down there and if it's dry like wintertime and you've been down there and the humidity is 20% and you have static and you touch her bag, she's going to kick you right in the side of the dome. And I promise to you, every time, she could be milked 10,000 times. So always keep that in mind, but don't let them scare you. If you're scared of them, they're going to know that. Like, you just want to just let them come right up in there, and you want to keep a routine. Even if you buy a heifer that's going to have a calf, there's nothing wrong with it, and it can be done. So, and you will get your best deal if you buy a heifer and buy it from a reputable seller or a reputable dairy.
Yeah.
So definitely keep that in mind. But I'm going to say